Hello, welcome to Nondual Christianity. In today's video, we'll be exploring the topic of sin. We'll look at some of the biblical definitions of sin, because there's quite a wide range of terms, actually, and then talk about some of the assumptions that we might be making regarding this. So sin is typically seen as something in opposition to God. It's something that's either being done, like breaking the rules that God has laid out in the Bible, or it is something that is a rottenness or something that is somehow not supposed to be a part of creation. In both of these cases, though, there are some assumptions that are being made. So before jumping into those, let me talk about some of the terms that are used for sin in the Bible. I'll put the verses with these descriptions down in the description of my video. So these are some terms that all mean sin: ignorance, error, inattention, missing the mark, like shooting at the wrong target, unrighteousness, as in not being aligned with the divine pattern, transgressing, lack of integrity, rebellion, treachery. And then the results of this are restlessness, badness, harm, guilt, trouble. So if you think about those terms, you realize that they're kind of in two large camps. One would be a camp of confusion or simply getting it wrong. And then the other grouping would be more of a intentional violation, something that is intentionally being transgressed. And normally, at least when I was growing up, what people would try to convince non-Christians of is that somehow they were breaking God's rules. And so they would, look at the more of the law type of rules. Have you ever lied? Have you ever thought a bad thought? Have you ever, right? And really what that was is you're trying to convince people that in some way that they were rotten. And so you'd have these arguments. Some people say, no, I'm a healthy apple. And other people say, no, you're a rotten apple. But in general, what's interesting to me is it's not a very high bar to convince people that they're lacking something, right? Whether they consider that rottenness or whether it would have a different term for it, to convince somebody that somehow they are unworthy or not loved or separate from what they would most desire, that they feel shame, that they feel a lack, that there's something out of place in life. That's kind of the default mode of people. In fact, that's so default that we just assume it's normal. We assume that that is just kind of a fact of life, that those things are part of our lives. And so then we look around to try to fix that. So another way of saying that is, we feel the confusion, we feel the suffering created from confusion, and we take that suffering, that feedback loop that something's out of place, and we basically keep the assumption that, yeah, sure, something's out of place. It's because I'm rotten or I'm missing something. We take that as true, and then we look for ways in which to solve that, in which to fix ourselves, to heal ourselves, to get to God. So you can see then where whether you're looking at sin as confusion or breaking the rules, they're really the same thing, because the reason someone is trying to then follow the rules is to earn something that they don't have, right? They're trying to get to God. They're trying to somehow be good enough to attain this thing that they don't already have. It's all coming from the confusion of a mistaken identity, as we talked about with sin in the fall. It's coming from our misidentification with our ego personality, this state of separation, instead of realizing that our true identity is the divine nature itself. So we're all in this feedback loop. We're all in the same state. And instead of looking at the core question of who am I truly rotten? Am I truly missing something? We assume that that's the case, and then we try to fix the rottenness. Maybe another way of saying this is, instead of looking at the apple and acknowledging that, sure, it's rotten, or sure, part of it's healthy, and then trying to fix it because we assume we are the apple, instead, we would question the assumption of whether we're the apple in the first place. Because if the apple's just a form, and it's not me, then there's nothing inherently threatening about rottenness. In fact, rottenness is just part of the natural process of how the world works. If apples didn't rot, we would have piles of apples. So decay or rot is a very natural part of how reality works. And it does not need to be any more threatening than that. And this is where you can see the gospel message can be and is so incredibly liberating, because the true gospel message, when Jesus talks about the kingdom of heaven is within us, when he talks about our identity being the divine nature, because the Father, the divine, is in Jesus, Jesus, the Spirit, is in us. These are all ways of trying to say you are already what you would hope to be. So awaken from this confused dream to your true self. Stop thinking you're the apple. You don't need to fix anything then. You just need to realize who you truly are. Thank you for exploring this idea with me today.